Jack Links presents Messing with Brock Squatch.
Dude, is he eating a Mentos?
Oh no.
Oh.
What did we do? At least he died doing what he loved.
I don't know a lot about sports, but I can drink a lot of beer.
My motto is simple. C's get degrees.
Need a long, inappropriate hug? I'm your man.
I think I'm smarter than you, because I probably am.
Howard Collins for Box Score.
Hello and welcome to the Box Score. I'm Brock in Los Angeles, joined by the Danettes out in Milford, Connecticut. Gigante interview today. You got Lance Armstrong on. Fritzy, does he take a whole page in your spiral notebook, or maybe a whole spiral notebook by itself? Take us through the process.
Yeah, there's a lot of arrows and stars and markings all over the notebook. It's something we've been working on for many, many months. We obviously wanted to get the exclusive, which he ended up choosing Oprah. But periodically over the months after he did the sit down with Oprah, we kept checking in to see, if and when he'd be willing to come on with us. And then we started getting more messages back and forth, which made it sound like he was more and more up to the, considering coming on. And then we got the note the other day saying he'll do it, and no holds barred, nothing we couldn't ask, and we talked to him for like a full half hour, and I'm glad it finally worked out.
Paulie, how badly did the boss want this interview since the news of steroids broke?
Well, he wanted it a long time ago. He was bummed that Oprah got it over us. But then it's kind of simmered. It's kind of gone away. I think we're all kind of shocked he said yes. I'm still surprised he said yes because I don't know what the upside is for Lance Armstrong doing an interview right now. But when Fritzy brought up to us maybe a week and a half ago, said, hey, this is close, we're kind of surprised. So, yeah, Dan would have liked to have it first, but he still thinks just because someone else has it first doesn't mean he can't do it better.
I've been asking myself for like a week now, or I don't know how long it's been that we've been sort of this might happen or whatever, but I have absolutely no idea why he did this interview. I have no clue. I can't even begin. It's not like he was promoting anything.
Right.
And, we used to have a sponsor of the show. There's an energy drink, FRS, that Lance was involved in, and he was a big part of. And we almost had the interview then. And this was really before all the wheels came off. So it would have been interesting had we gotten to back then. But, everything, his whole life didn't explode yet. And so he was still very protective over the steroid allegations. And I think one of the reasons that the interview didn't happen was because he wasn't really going to talk about that.
Yep.
And it would have been interesting had we done that then. But I still am scratching my head. I have no clue why he came on.
Well, maybe he's trying to ingratiate himself back into public life. I mean, I've read that he wants to start a new cancer foundation if Armstrong doesn't start him back, and maybe he wants to get some sponsors back. Maybe this is his first step back into public life.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. It just happened to be a guy maybe that he respects in Dan Patrick, or maybe he doesn't respect him and just said, hey, this is a pretty good sized show. Let's pick this one. Or maybe we're the only people who were calling every month. And they said, hey, you know what? Fritzy's going to call every month. Let's just get this done. His agent may have said, it's very possible the agent just said, look, Fritzy's not going to stop calling until I recommend it.
Please, and get this guy off my back.
That being said, park the bike and get the phone on.
Don't you think, though, you could tell he had, I don't know if respect is the right word, but I certainly think I could just tell, little things he said. He's talking about his son playing football. He's like, you'll appreciate this, Dan. He's at Austin Westlake trying to play football. Yeah. He clearly just felt something.
Certainly on a level there.
Yeah.
Either that or Lance is a genius on how to make himself affable and likable to people, because before we taped this interview, Brock, and before we even started, he told us a funny story about being in South Dakota, and he had us all cracking up before the interview even started. Now, do you do that so you have an easier landscape to do the interview? Maybe. That seems pretty concocted, but he's a guy who's notoriously concocted in the way he lives his life. So we're not going to change the way we treat him based on that, but he made some I wouldn't say fans, but he made us really like find him likable before the interview even started, which is tough to do.
Well, if you think his friendship with Matthew McConaughey is a ruse, then I must disagree with you. McLovin, what were the fans' reaction to the interview?
It's interesting. I saw a lot of Twitter reaction. To be totally honest, there are a lot of people who still hate Lance Armstrong for what he did, and this did not change their opinion at all. You know, I think Paulie might have said during one of the look-ins, if you're neutral about Lance Armstrong, this might have swayed you, but if you decide you hate him, this isn't going to change anything.
I actually thought it was interesting on Twitter. There were still a lot of supporters of his.
Yeah.
Which, you know, people hating Lance Armstrong really isn't anything new, or even people being like, yeah, the guy's a cheater, like sort of in the middle. But the people who are still diehard supporters of him, I was pretty surprised by that. Like, hey, great interview, you know, you're always going to be a champion and things like that. And it was pretty surprising.
Well, we've got Frost Nixon, we've got Winfrey Cruz, and now we've got Patrick and Armstrong. Here are some of the highlights.
Could you have won without doping?
Well, that's a great question, but not in that era. No, I mean, I think most people recognize, especially the people that were on those battlefields, would agree that that was just it was an arms race at the time. It was a high octane era, and there were no tests. I mean, you couldn't detect certain things like you can now.
What did it feel like when you dope?
I mean, you certainly would feel stronger, and you would recover better. It's not as if this era made us robotic, and then we didn't feel pain and we didn't suffer. I mean, the sport was still damn hard, and you still had to. I mean, I think there's this perception that it was just rigged, quote unquote, and I mean, that's just bull. It wasn't.
It's almost like Mark McGwire, that the further he got into this home run chase and being Paul Bunyan and representing great things with baseball, that he couldn't get out of it.
I mean, let's not forget, and I think we do. I think by and large we forget he helped save that game.
Do you think you helped save cycling?
Well, cycling wasn't in the same place that baseball was in at that time. But I think the numbers will speak for themselves if you look at global viewership numbers and global sponsorship numbers and amount of interest in the sport and bike sales both domestically and internationally. I mean those numbers will speak for themselves.
I'm going to actually discuss Dan's questioning more than the answers themselves. But if anyone's ever thinking about a career in media or working in a media, Dan's first question was, could you have won without doping? 6 words. It took him 2 seconds to ask it. And Lance goes, oh, wow, great question. He's on an island. He's got to come up with an answer. And then Dan puts out a scenario about Mark McGwire, comparing him to Lance Armstrong. And Lance kind of dips his toe in the area of, well, he was great for the game of baseball. Did you save cycling? Fast, quick, ask follow-up question because he's listening and paying attention. So as much as, when I'm sitting in the chair, I'm more focused on Dan than the interviewee. So I actually think those are great answers, but they don't come without the question first.
The Mark McGwire thing I thought was particularly interesting because it's like, it's almost like throwing Lance in a way like a lifeline, saying like, you're not the only guy who's been in this situation. There are other people too, and it almost made him comfortable enough to really start defending himself even more and saying like, yeah, you know what, I would do it again. And he's sort of, you know what, he saved baseball. What did I do? I built cycling, and he sort of was a little more free. Like, yeah, you're right, I'm not the only guy here. There are other people who have been in this situation.
I was thinking something he said there, the curse words, like he cursed a few times. And what you guys were saying before, do you think he was manipulating us to make us feel like it was a more folksy interview? Or he reminded me like I have this uncle who just curses all the time in his body. He came off kind of bawdy, not polished.
That was really weird to me because most guys, especially with the media savvy of Lance Armstrong, know, even though it's a taped interview, doesn't mean it's not going to go on air. He doesn't know that we could edit it afterwards. I would assume he would have said the same exact thing if it were live. I bet he would have. So I just think he got really comfortable and got into a discussion, which is Dan's goal. He wants a discussion, not an interview.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dan has a way of making the guest comfortable, and I'm not so sure he would have been as free with someone else from their pre-chat.
I didn't hear him swear with Oprah.
That's it just seemed, and I think at times during the interview he got more and more revealing again as a testament to Dan probably making Lance feel at times that he forgot that there's going to be all kinds of people listening, and this is on Nation and worldwide on radio and TV and it's not just two guys chatting.
So maybe it comes off more real. You know, some people were saying on Twitter that he was being a phony. You know, he's just manipulating us more. You know, it's hard to believe that when he's loose enough and conversational enough to drop 3 curse words. So I don't know. I'm a little, you know, I want to be skeptical, but it's hard for me to be skeptical. I kind of believe the guy.
As a proficient cursor, probably, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm the probably most curse-friendly in the room. I don't usually go 15 seconds without dropping some type of swear word.
Like right now.
Yes. Yeah, there was something about like, all right, well, maybe he's just sort of a matter-of-fact kind of guy, and if something's BS, he's just going to call BS, which I certainly appreciate.
Dan, of course, did finally get his guy and had him on. And so we asked Dan, did he get everything he wanted out of this coveted interview? Here's what he said in Boss's thoughts.
Yeah, I think so. I probably would have gone a little bit further on what's it like when you stick a needle in you or you put blood into you. Just sort of that whole science of cheating. And, you know, when you listen to him, he sort of validates in his own mind, everybody else is cheating, so I'm going to cheat too. And I was the best writer among all the cheaters. So that's why he says he looks at himself as the 7-time tour winner. In a weird way, I liked him. I think he got to the point where he got in so deep he couldn't get out. And but I don't agree with going after people and bankrupting people. I mean, he was vicious to people. But in his world, you're cheating, he's cheating, I'm cheating, and I'm the best. There was a Barry Bonds type feel to him. So I think we got what we wanted to get. And I thought that he was more than willing to answer those questions.
Yeah, I agree with the guys and what Dan says as far as coming across very likable. It's someone that you want to believe, you want to somehow, for lack of a better word, give him a second chance. I found it very interesting also that when he was talking about how he got to a point where he got so successful and was doing so much with the Livestrong Foundation and was so deep into the lie that it became impossible to break free from that, and he had to kind of play this role, this character. He wasn't like even a person anymore. He was Lance Armstrong, some kind of superhero, and had to continue, and he'd be letting so many people down if he even thought of admitting that it was all a lie or that he was a cheater. So, but Dan's gonna be critical no matter what, and he said it on the show today. He'll be thinking about it through the weekend, what he could have done better or how he could have followed up. But I think all in all, we got a lot out of that interview.
Lance's interview wasn't the only great thing going on this week. There were other hard-hitting conversations the boss had. We will look back on the week that was following this. Stay with us.
Did you ever come close to quitting?
You know, I think I came. If I ever would have, quit, it'd have probably been after my dad was killed in Daytona. That was probably as close as I literally came to maybe thinking about not driving anymore. But we weren't going to quit. I mean, that would have been. I'd have never been able to get over that. I'd have regretted that for.
Welcome back to the Box Score. Great interview with Junebug there. Congratulations on your recent victory. A lot of great interviews this week. Seton, which one would you say sticks out to you most?
Oh, man, that's a tough question. Well, Lance Armstrong was pretty amazing. John Daly, I thought, was remarkable. I mean, the personal stuff that he got into with, alcoholism, his dad, his dad pointing a gun at him, that was something that really made an impact on me.
I saw a lot of love for the John Daly interview, which is really surprising because of the caliber of athletes. Not that John Daly was great in his day, but we're talking Dale Earnhardt Jr., we're talking Lance Armstrong, some of the two biggest names. We also had great interviews with Coach K. Of course, I'm the big Andy Dalton fan, and getting Andy Dalton pissed off, it was a very minor thing, but a miracle accomplishment. But yeah, for some reason, Daly talking about his father really stood out.
I'm going to go back to Dale Earnhardt Jr. Yeah, that is so strong. I mean, when Dale Earnhardt Jr. brings up his father, we rarely do. He does it on his own. I mean, I know we all know how his dad died, but how surreal is that? Your dad dies in your rearview mirror as he's helping you and your Michael Waltrip win a race. That's publicly in front of everybody, and then you have to stay in that sport. I mean, if I was working with my dad the day he died, I don't think I would stay in that job, and have to relive it every day. Or maybe you would. I don't even know. But I mean, to think about that, it's kind of mind-blowing to me that you would stay in that sport, but that's what you grew up to do.
I got emotional listening to Jim Kelly, and just you can hear, just from the surgery he had on the jaw, his voice doesn't sound the same as it used to, and trying to stay alive long enough so that he can walk his daughters down the aisle. Some of those things really hit home. But even with that, I would probably lean towards John Daly again, with your own father turning a gun on you in a drunk stupor and getting beaten, you and your brother, for no reason, and millions of dollars that he lost, and just it sounded like even though he's had a lot of success in his life, there's been some horrific things that he had to deal with. So Daly stood out to me more than anybody else.
Brock, just we're going to lighten up next week. We got Carrot Top for 2 seconds on Monday.
Well, before the prop comics, let's listen back at John Daly's interview and his surprising revelation about his dad.
I've been through hell. I mean, just, in 2001, right before my mom died, my dad pulled a gun on me. And, luckily my brother was there to save him from shooting me, but he was drunk, and that's a nightmare that I never forget. And I'm, what is that? I'm Jimmy Christmas, like 35, 36 years old back in 01, or whatever it is, and I'm still, I'm an adult. I mean, I'm a grown man. Why would my dad be still wanting to pull a gun on me like that? And I think in the realm of life, we are all still kids, especially around our parents. But it just still to this day doesn't make sense why he did that.
The thing about that point of the interview is it was sort of right at the back end of the hour, and we were right up against the point where we had to get to break. We had like 4 minutes of commercials we had to fit in, plus another segment to get to a hard out. And it's like, 11 minutes left in the hour, and Dan says, do you think your life would have been different if your childhood had been any different? Like, we should have been wrapping the interview. And Paulie's like, how do you ask that question right now? Because it was so good. And so late. And like, oh, man, how do you do that right now?
And I'm not faulting Dan, because it's a fantastic question, the flow of the interview, but there's certain things in radio that you have to respect, and commercials are one of them. And I'm sitting there, this was my worst moment of the week, actually. I'm sitting there going, how are we going to cut John Daly off? He's in the middle of this unbelievable revelation, and we literally have about 90 seconds till we're absolutely effed. And I'm telling Dan, I'm like, try to get out as gentle as you can, and Dan's in a tough spot there, but it worked out to be great.
It was. Up next, Dan was also first to talk to new Lakers coach Byron Scott and caught him off guard with an unlikely question. Welcome back to the Box Score. We've talked about Dan getting the most out of his guest, but McLovin, part of that is him asking playful questions, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about this week. I mentioned the stuff with Andy Dalton, where he got Andy Dalton riled up about how he's too nice. The great question today about Byron Scott, what's going to happen first, you dunking or the Lakers making the playoffs. Even Lance Armstrong, you heard Lance laughing in the interview? In the setup of the interview, Dan told Lance a story about how his kids weren't impressed by Mount Rushmore. So Lance was like kind of expecting Dan to be funny, because Dan is a really funny person. So, and he always sort of mixes it. That's part of his technique too, I think, is to get a sense of humor going. So, yeah, it's an unbelievable mix of serious and funny.
Oh, he loosened up new Lakers coach Byron Scott when he did ask him that question about dunking.
More likely you make the playoffs or you dunk this year?
Well, I'm going to dunk this year. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm going to dunk this year. So I'm going to just leave it at that. As far as the playoffs, like I said, Dan, I guarantee you this team is going to surprise some people, and we're going to be pretty competitive every night.
Yeah, Brock Strap, if you go earlier in the interview, Dan actually says, he goes, can you still dunk? Real quick question. And he goes, yeah, I dunked 2 years ago. And I'm like, Byron Scott dunked 2 years ago? He seems a little older than the average NBA player. And he's 53 now, so he dunked 2 years ago. And then he told Dan, I guarantee you could dunk. That's going to come back. He's now the Lakers coach, because what I, as a producer, am thinking in my head, and all of us are thinking is, man, the day he dunks, I want to make sure there's a film crew, and I want to make sure we get the film first, or at least get it quick, or get him on the next day, because that's kind of a running bit that you could do again and again.
Yeah, it's also, if you're talking about funny lines this week, the Lakers making the playoffs is right up there on the comedy scale.
That's mean.
I'm sorry, Lakers fans. I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
I'm sorry.
You're not.
I'm sorry.
Everyone at the control room throwing stuff at the screens. Fritzy, how'd you pull off this interview with Byron Scott?
Again, we've been trying to get him since even when it was rumored that he might get the job, and he was one of the top candidates. And then once he officially got the word, we were working with the Lakers. They said he would do it, but he was leaving for vacation for a week. You know, again, we were hoping to get him the same day, or if not the day after his press conference. But he just got back from vacation and was able to lead off with us today, and we worked it out. So it was a nice way to start things off today.
Great job, Fritzy. I can't wait for Friday, Fritzy. You're going to be shooting balls and golf simulators, the whole 9 yards. All right, stay tuned. It's going to be 3 flinch balls at McLovin's Deuce. The Box Score presents Great Moments in DP Show History.
Yes, McLovin. Hello, come in.
Thanks for watching Great Moments in DP Show History.
Welcome back to the Box Score. Last call here at the Box Score Bar. Boy, there's a theme today. Lance Armstrong, cups there. McLovin, classic moment. Why in the world were you wearing a cup there?
I have no memory of that ever happening on the Dan Patrick Show. That might have been like 8 years ago.
That was really us?
Are you sure that was me? That might have been Clive Owen in one of his dramatic roles. I don't remember that.
Easy. It sounded a little bit hollow, which may help you out today. Seton gets 3 flinch balls since he beat you in 3-ball yesterday. Seton, are you ready?
I am more than ready.
Brock, just to give you a heads up of the scene in here, our cameraman is so nervous about Seton's aim that he's covering his own groin.
Yeah.
3-ball
nice.
for 2-ball.
Well, that young cameraman may know of some shenanigans that are used to happen here. Am I free to fire?
Fire away, sir. Fire when ready.
One for one.
Shot.
You still get 2 more throws.
Sure do.
Brock, I'm going to need a moment here.
Oh, that was right there.
Back in the
20 seconds.
Cuppage. That was right in the, hit the bottom there.
Okay.
On its way up.
Nice.
There's 2 more.
Get your focus, Get your focus.
That was excellent.
Ooh. That's a message pitch.
Ooh, he's a dinner.
Glancing blow.
Can I tap out?
All right, here we go.
You might after this one.
My hands are sweaty. I must be nervous here. Let me see here. I just can't get a grip any but like
You need some
talc or
rosin?
something. Yeah, I hope that this doesn't slip out of my hands here.
I think that was a direct throw.
What?
That was a direct throw.
That's against protocol.
Brock, do I get a
that's
shot?
a slip.
Do I get a shot?
I was just saying how sweaty my hands were.
You get 1 back, McLovin.
That seemed unintentional.
my God.
Let's switch him up.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Oops. Man.
That's the way to cap off this show.
Sorry,
Fritzy, who is on tomorrow? Can you outdo yourself?
We will be at the Man Cave in New York City. Alex Trebek, Jeopardy host, will join us, give Dan some ideas on the best way to host Sports Jeopardy. And Kevin Milwaukee, MLB Network, joins us in the studio as well.
Solid call. Thanks for watching the Box Score. Set your DVR or tune in weekdays at 3 p.m. only on Audience Channel 239 right here on DirecTV. John and Callie, this one's for you, bud.
I don't know a lot about sports, but I can drink a lot of beer. My motto is simple. C's get degrees.
Need a long, inappropriate hug? I'm your man.
I think I'm smarter than you because I probably am.
Hey, thanks for watching the Box Score. Holy cow!